Hi, today I'll be giving a presentation on ESG rating. So ESG stands for Environmental, Social and Governance. So what is ESG rating? So the idea is to create transparency and hold companies accountable for the way they're making money. It measures the long-term environmental, social and governance risk of an organization. So simply put, is the way to evaluate how a company is making their money. Now, ESG and its impact to investors. So, simply put, it gives an insight into an investor's portfolio. So, in a way, it is a screening, allowing the investors choose the firm that matches the investors' values, and it's an add-on to the financials of the organization. So the parameters in environmental, so ESG rating. So there are three parameters: environmental, social, and governance. So the environmental side of things, so it measures to what degree the companies impact the habitat and its resources. The social, to what degree does the company uphold fair treatment to human capital and taken responsible for their product? And the governance side looks into how the company is run in terms of integrity and fairness. Now, environmental scores are based on four main categories. So, the first category is climate change issues. So, climate change issues deals with environmental carbon emissions, the footprint of their products, financial impact, financing of environmental impacts, climate change, and the climate change variables. The next category is natural capital issues. So they look at how the water is sourced, things like biodiversity and land use, and raw material sourcing. The third aspect is pollution and waste category. So in this, it looks at how the company is, how the toxic emissions and waste are being managed, how the what packing materials are used and how they are disposed of, and things like electronic waste. The last aspect is environmental opportunity. So these things are things like clean technologies, green building, and the use of renewable energies. The second category is social, and they are divided social score, and they are divided into four further subcategories. So the first subcategory is human capital. So this looks into how labor is managed, the practices of the company, and how the workers are trained, and supply chain labor standards. The second subcategory is product liability area for things. When it comes to IT sector, they look into the privacy and security uh, of the product. This third part is stakeholder opposition. So these are things like controversial sourcing. So things like cocoa industry using sourcing from countries which use child labor, and things like community relations. And the last part is social opportunity. These things looks to access to communication, access to healthcare, and opportunities in nutrition and health. The third category is governance. Governance is further divided into two subcategories. The first one is corporate governance. These things look into the composition of the board, executives, composition, ownership, and accounting practices. Corporate behavior looks into business ethics and things like tax transparency. So the most famous ESG rating is MSCI range template. The range template has a score from 0 to 10, 0 being triple C, and up to triple A, which is at 10, max at 10. The breakdown is given in the presentation. So, how are the scores? How are the companies scored? So the scores are determined by four steps. So the first step is to identify key issues of by the company's industry. So things like petrochemical industries and IT sector is different. So the score is based. The first step is to identify the key metrics in the industry. The second step is to score the company on each issue. So there are 80 different exposure metrics and 250 different governance metrics. The governance metrics is relevant in all the companies, whereas the 80 different exposure metrics that are used are different for different industries. Now, the third step is to find weights of each scoring criteria. So, the different metrics used, each score's weight is identified, and based on the other weights, the last step is where using the weights they determine a combined score. Now, ESG has, even though it is great, it has various drawbacks. So the ESG score um, gives might give a score of average range, whereas we would not know what the breakdown of each category is. So environmental, social, and governance scores are not individually provided, whereas they are averaged out. And it's difficult to determine weight of each factor that has been identified. So it becomes difficult to compare from company to company. And certain companies use greenwashing, where they promote clean technologies and clean and other projects which may seem good and might give a good score, but actually have no or minimal impact on the environment, social, or governance of the company. Thank you.